Tumba Tuji Janla Gijom Zar, Dene Zenon Damba Kanga, Jordan de Landerkachi Sorto, Jordan de Jardin Santi Kim Zapa Gyoto. Katsara Kankavo, Te Tevjin de Jerkermeba, Te Tevjin no, Kankavo, Kantana Shanchu Sanwa Santi Kim Zapa Shebi Santi Jijan. Namjan Yodo, Kanagan, Gochi Santi Kim Zapa Shebi Santi Jijan Namjan Yodo, Kana Shanchuki. Shenga Sanji Kim Zabab Shebi Sanji Jijan Namjan Yodo, Gandana Devjan Sherbam Sandang, Zug Tongwei, Sanji Kim Zabab Shebi Sanji Jijan Namjan Yodo, Gandana Chukuji, Sanji Kim Zabab Shebi Sanji Jijan Namjan Yodo, Devjan de Jerzeki Sanji Kim Zabab Shebadang, Devjan de Chodang, Kimu Tsadang, Jermit Kandang. Kamba Soba Sanji Kim Zabab Sheba Dagjan Yodo, Gangavo, Gandana, Chiri Sanji Kim Zabab Shebi Sanji Jijan Namjan Yodo, Gangavo Namka Sanji, Namka Sanji, Namke Sanji, Zabab Shebi Sanji Jijan Dagjan Yodo, Devjan de Namka Dang, Varnang Dagdang, Sanji Kim Zabab Sheba De, Destavi Semchen De Dongdorin Yoro, Gangavo, Devjindar Malamdang, Zingyandang, Chirdadang, Chakchadang, Dimadang, Mugedang, Huir Tamba, Ike Tamba, Nibitsu, Tumba Simson, Dedar Lion, Sanji Jim Zabab Shiba, Dagjan Yodo, Dedana Ike number Shibali, Sanji Jim Zabab Shiba, Sanji Jijan, Dagjan Yodo, Gangao, Gangnat Mava Mebadang, Juba Mebadang, Muftan Badang, Murjopi, Simson Dedar Sanji Jim Zabab Shite, Tirtava Yonsu Doba, Sanji Jijan, Namjan Yodo. Gangao, Sanji Jordan de Namji Sholumdang, Longshotan Yonzu, Shobe Simson Namdari Shana Sanji Kim Zapa Mashibana Ganyang Medo. 今天的传承念完了。
That was the oral transmission of today.
今天等会儿下完课。
After the class, I think that the Sangha members over here of the 4 groups should stay after class. I have a few announcements.
下面就今天讲什么？是维摩诘经是吧？
So today, Vimalakirti Sutra, right?
是吧？
Is that right?
维摩诘经。
Vimalakirti. The supreme and profound Dharma is very difficult to obtain. Now I have the opportunity to listen to the supreme Dharma. May I then have all the blessings from all the Tathagata so that I understand the profound meaning of the Dharma. And now let's give rise to the supreme bodhicitta in order to benefit all sentient beings. Now I listen to the Dharma. So today we are on chapter 11 on the practices or the actions of Bodhisattva. Yesterday, Vimalakirti and Manjushri, as well as all the Bodhisattvas from fragrance accumulation Pure Land. And everyone then arrived in front of the Buddha. Then they had a discussion on the food and the fragrance. They had a discussion and conversation on that. So yesterday we talked about the meal. When the meal will be digested, that was the main topic that they were discussing. Also, they discussed about the different types of people, the Shravakas, the kind of people whomsoever enters the primary stage, and the ones have not generated the intention of Mahayana, and the ones who already generated intention of Mahayana, and the ones already attained forbearance of non-arising of the Dharma. So we talked about all different kind of people, or people at different stages of the path after them taking the food. The period of time the food will get digested. In Abhidharma, there are 22 faculties. And all of them, and at the end it talks about the undefiled faculty, that is the three kinds of undefiled faculties, which then fits into the last three kinds of people of Mahayana. That was according to some commentaries. So we got to know that there were such great fragrant meal. Ananda, as a Shravaka, was very difficult to accept such kind of supreme food, supreme meal. Just as nowadays there are people who are studying the Dharma, but since they did not really dig into the profound meaning of the Dharma, they tend to have some misunderstandings of the Dharma, or not being able to understand the profundity of the Dharma. So now, today, Ananda addressed the Buddha, saying that this is unprecedented. I have never seen such miraculous food before. So, world-honored one, can this fragrant food perform Buddha's work like this? Because usually, food can only perform as or have the function of filling you up when you're hungry. But Ananda over here then asked the Buddha, saying that, well, I've never heard of such a thing, that the food can perform the Buddha's work. So this is quite miraculous. Just as nowadays some mundane people would hear the function of food can help you to heal your body, but the food can perform Buddha's work. That's very difficult for Ananda to understand. Buddha's work in mainland China or Japan sometimes refers to chanting or practicing to dispel obstacles or some events. Or practicing in terms of repentance or making smoke offering. So those are often referred to as Buddha's work. Usually people would think that some kind of Dharma assembly, some kind of chanting for the deceased person to be reborn in Pure Land, or chanting or practice for repentance, and making smoke offering, those are usually considered as Buddha's work. But that's very limited. In the commentary of Vimalakirti, it is stated that what is Buddha's work? It is to teach the sentient beings so that they can be led onto the path of liberation. So through teaching the Dharma, through different ways, and leading all sentient beings to liberation, that's very important. That's what Buddha's work are. Therefore, I really hope that from different monasteries, from different centers, I really hope that when you talk about the Buddha work, it's not just about making offering to the monastery. It's not just about making smoke offering. It's not just some kind of rituals to receive some money, to chant, to to help the deceased one to be reborn in Pure Land. Are they Buddha works? Yes, but they're not the only ones of the Buddha work. In fact, the more extensive idea of Buddha's work is liberate sentient beings. So the so-called Buddhist work is to teach the sentient beings and then help them to be liberated. In Tibet, we say that do you exercise? What kind of exercise do you do? Climbing mountains? How about you? No? No. Which mountain do you usually? Thai mountain? All right. Maybe I should also do such exercise. So we just talked about the Buddha's work. The kind of Buddhist work that is talked about over here is a bit different than how we usually talk about it. In fact, it talks about different methods and different ways of helping sentient beings and liberate sentient beings. Sometimes, if you have time, I think you should read into the Avatamsaka Sutra, where it talks about many methods of helping to lead sentient beings to liberation. It talks about the Buddha's work in terms of Shravakas, of the mundane beings. So from different levels. After studying this, I hope that whenever you talk about the Buddha's work, whenever you talk about the important aspects of Buddha's work, I think you should consider, as I would consider, the most important is to teach the Buddha's work, to have the doctrine as well as the practice of the Dharma. And such kind of practice, such kind of teaching is the most important Buddha's work, the teaching or the doctrine and the practice of Buddha's work. So the ones who can practice in propagating the doctrine and practicing the doctrine are the ones who are upholding the correct teachings of the Dharma. Some of the teachings are understood in terms of Buddha's work, but maybe because of the history, maybe because of the background, different influence, then maybe you don't really have a correct understanding of Buddha's work. But now, what are the real Buddha's work? Ananda started asking, so how could the Buddha use fragrant food to perform Buddha's work? That was the question from Ananda. And then the Buddha said that indeed, just so, Ananda. Kumarjiva's version, it stated 13 types of Buddha work. According to Tang's translation and Tibetan translation, the versions are a little bit different. So there are different numbers in terms of how many of the Buddhist work there are. So roughly, they're a bit different, but in general, they're very similar in terms of content. So now it talks about about how many of the Buddha works there are. So in the Buddha's land, there are the illumination of the Buddha performs the Buddha work. In each of the verses, in Tibetan version, it says that in some of the Buddha lands, they perform the Buddha's work in such a way. So in Tibetan's version, it is described as so. But over here, it says that there are Buddha lands where the illumination of the Buddha performs the Buddha's work. So they use the illumination of the Buddha perform the Buddha's work. The illumination, how we usually understand, are the light that illuminates or different kind of brightness. So different forms, different body may then generate illumination. And with such, then the Buddha would eliminate the darkness of ignorance with the illumination of wisdom. In some sutras, usually they state that the Buddha's body would then illuminate the whole world with the light, with the generation of light. So that's the generation of the wisdom light. According to Avatamsaka Sutra, it also says that Buddha use illumination to liberate sentient beings. So in that sutra, it talks quite a bit about the different types of illumination, such as the illumination that brightens, the illumination that brings joy. So different types of illumination that brings sentient beings to liberation. So illumination here has many meanings. According to Mahavipolya Mahasamgata Sutra, it says that the light of the sun and moon can dispel darkness of the present, while the radiance of the Buddha can eliminate darkness of 3 times. As the Tathagata possessed the miraculous power, radiance of Tathagata exceeds that of the sun and the moon. So the light of the sun and the moon could dispel the darkness of our present world. With such kind of light, all the darkness will be dispelled. But with the light of Tathagata, could then dispel the darkness of 3 times, the ignorance of 3 times. That is, use illumination as Buddha's work. Also, when some great masters, when they pass into parinirvana, we see different lights, different kind of signs that has illumination aspect would appear at the time of death for those masters. I remember that when Pontsukul Rinpoche returned to Larungar, and at that time we were building the shrine hall, and while building the foundation, we see great bright light coming from there, which also was a kind of light. When Pontsukul Rinpoche was giving teaching at a deer park, we also saw this beautiful bright light over there. Anyhow, the foundation, when we were building the foundation of the shrine hall, that light was the same as the light that were exactly the same that I saw during Deer Park, during the teaching of Deer Park. So I think this is a great sign that this is the bright light symbolize that in Larungar, the Dharma will propagate, will be prosperous. Maybe at that time we had all different kind of thoughts, but now when I think back, 30 years back, when Larungar didn't have many people, but now when we look back, that was a very special causal and conditions that is stated by Pongtsogor Rinpoche. Those were very auspicious signs. Although we say that do not grasp onto those external forms of lights and so on, but I think sometimes it really shows how auspicious it was. I know people nowadays, when they hear the teaching of Buddhist logics and Madhyamika, they don't feel much. But whenever there's a rainbow coming up, everyone gets really excited and say, wow, there are rainbows there. So some people used to tell me that if you could just manifest some bright light, I think it would be more beneficial for people than you spending so much time teaching. Well, but I think to myself that there are so many electrical lights that we don't need to manifest lights. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is there are times that you shouldn't grasp, and you can't just deny all the bright lights. When we went to Omei Mountain, inside the clouds, you can see some bright lights. I went there 2 times, and both of the time I saw the bright light coming across the ocean of clouds. Lots of tourists would ask for pictures. Can you take a picture for me like this, like that? But all those kind of lights were quite beautiful. The first time I went with Pongtsogor Rinpoche, and second time I went with Khenpo Drikpa. So we can't completely deny it, and we shouldn't grasp onto them either. That's the first thing. That's the first Buddha work. The second Buddha work was where the Bodhisattvas performed the Buddha's work. Sometimes the Buddhas won't propagate the Dharma, teach the Dharma, but they would send Bodhisattvas to teach the Dharma. Just as in this sutra, Vimalakirti Sutra, on the first half of the sutra, Vimalakirti was teaching, as well as Manjushri was giving teachings instead of the Buddha. Also, Lotus Sutra as well as Avatamsaka Sutra. Some of those teachings were given by Bodhisattvas instead of the Buddha. Similarly, the Heart Sutra was taught by Avalokiteshvara with the blessings from the Buddha. That's how the Heart Sutra was taught as well. So that's the second Buddha's work. And the third Buddha's work was that where conjured persons created by Buddha performed the Buddha's work. According to some commentary, it states that the Buddha sometimes, when the Buddhas see that there are no conditions for them to teach the Dharma, but the Buddhas would then manifest different conjured people or bodhisattvas or even Buddha. Just as this one particular Buddha, during his time abiding in the world, he had no connection to the sentient beings to propagate the Dharma. There was no sentient beings to listen to his teaching. Therefore, he then passed into parinirvana, but left one conjured Buddha into this world to teach the future generations for a kalpa. Also, Prabhupada Ratna, that Buddha manifested Bodhisattva to then liberate sentient beings. So that is conjured person, or this manifestation. It could be understood in a way that the Buddha then manifested as a good teacher or Brahma or kings, even beggars, butchers, all different kinds of people in this world to liberate sentient beings. So this is also a kind of Buddha's work. So that is why we say that according to our very dualistic thoughts, sometimes we would say that this is a Buddha. It looks really chubby, looks really really fair, very pleasant to look at. So that must be a Buddha. But when we see a person who is really short and very skinny and looks very fragile and very sick, and then in that way that person can't be a Buddha at all, because according to our aesthetic, a Buddha should look in certain ways and shouldn't look in certain ways. So the point over here, it just says that the Buddha would then appear as conjured person and then perform the Buddha's work. So you can't really completely rely on your dualistic thoughts, because they would manifest in any forms to benefit sentient beings. And the next one is where the Bodhi tree performed the Buddha's work. The Bodhi tree, at the Bodh Gaya, the Bodhi tree over there. My back. Why is that? If I move, it hurts a bit. Maybe because of the weather.
刚才讲到就是有些地方呢就是以菩提树啊，就是菩提树的话呢，就是一般这个佛陀成道的那个菩提树，这是我们公认的。但是印度那个就是大唐西域记啊，就是大唐西域记里面呢，
According to the travel notes of Western regions in Great Tang Dynasty, in that book it is stated that it is under the
毗婆树呢，就是它当时那个就是。 当时那个玄奘去的时候呢，就是本来是很高很高的，可能有好几层楼那样那么高。但后来很多人都看断，就是看断之后的话呢，当时那个只留下了这个大概是可能现在的菩提树那么高吧，就是他当时也描述了一些这个菩提树。其实在西域记当中的话呢，就是就经常这个菩提树啊，怎么讲啊？就是那个就是印度的这些。 身体的记者呢，就是特别就是描述的很好。我到时候可能会讲一下那个这个大唐西域记跟那个发现的这个复国记啊，就是这个是对我们这个佛教徒人类来讲呢，贡献非常大的。因为如果不是这样的时候的话呢，可能是现在就是包括这个转发的地方啊，就是养生的地方这些都。
Because without those, we won't be able to know the history and know the previous geological and historical aspect of India back then. And from the notes, I found some hidden meanings within. So maybe later on, I will give teachings on them. Not now, later. Don't clap.
然后那个这个菩提树呢，就是实际上是应该佛陀这个成佛的这个地方的，就是真我这样这个可以说是他的这个功德是非常非常大的。
It has great merit.
应该像我们现在拿的那个菩提智。
Nowadays, the Bodhi, the so-called Bodhi seed malas are not really connected, probably not connected to the real Bodhi tree, but the seed, the mala that's made from the branches of the Bodhi tree would have great merit.
有这么一个小的这个经典，
I
它那个
think
经典里
within
面呢，
a
就是讲到
really
真正
short
的这个菩提
sutra,
树的这个念珠啊，如
it
果菩提树的
talks
这个念
about
珠呢，就是树你
the
这个
Bodhi
受
tree
持的话呢，
seed,
就是不管
Bodhi
是
tree
你念佛也好
mala
念没有念咒语念也好，没有念也好，就是它那
has
个
great
功德呢
merit.
自
It
然而
can
然会
bring
增长
great merit,
甚至
whether you use
蜡
it
的
to
那
chant
种
mantra or
念珠
not.
的话呢，那这个
If
四纵无益，就是
even
行住
you're
坐卧的这个
holding
任何四
the
纵
mala
无益，做善做恶，
when
就是
you are
全部都变
sitting,
成了这个
standing, sleeping,
善，就是无量的这个功德
everything
啊，就是这样的
then
功
will
德。
transform
后
into
来好像
virtuous
也这样的一
actions.
个故事，就是说是
Also, it
这
tells
这
the
个经里面
story
就是讲的故事，
within that
就是说是
sutra.
以前有一个
It says that
外道的人，就是对
there was
这
a
个佛教特
heterodox
别有这个
person
谢
who
见，但后来呢，
had
就是他的
a
这个
wrong
儿子
view
好像
of
那个
Buddhism,
突然就死了，死了
and
之后的
his
话呢，
son
他就心里面想，就是也许是
his
我
son
对这个
died,
佛教的诽谤儿子的导致的这个
at a
这个
young
原因。
age.
但是呢，
So this
就是
person
说
then
是这个
thought
菩
to
提树是
himself,
非常
maybe
一
it is
个
because
深妙
I
的这个树。
I
我的儿子的
slander
尸体能不能就是
the
在哪里
slander
就是放
Buddhism.
几天
That's
的话
probably
呢，
the
会
fruition
不会
of
他
it.
出现过来？就是如果是真的出现过来
Then
的话，
he
那
thought
说
to
明这个
himself,
就是很厉
maybe
害的。然
I
后
should
呢，就是
try
这个人
to
就把
wake my
儿子的
son
尸
up
体就是
from
拉
the
到这个菩
dead
提树下
from
就是
death
他就
with
7
the
天当中
branch 自己
of
就是
就念佛，就是为
the
了这个让儿
Bodhi
子去念。
tree.
后来的
And
话呢，
let's
就
see
是
if the
希望
Bodhi
呢，
tree
这个儿子
really
真的
indeed
就
have
接受
such
经过了。
merit.
从此之后呢，
After
他放弃了
he
自己的
did
宗
so
教，然后
and
呢，就是
started
皈依这个
practicing for
佛教。
7 days,
从那个
his
时候
son
开始
did
呢，这个菩提
wake
树
up
叫
from
做是延
death.
命树，就是
And
那个
after that,
就是
he
长
took
树，就是
refuge
这个
in
延年益寿
Buddhism
的
and
这
started
个
practicing
延
heterodox
命或者说叫延
faith.
命树，或者是佛陀呢，
And
就是
since
因为获
then,
得
the
这个菩
tree
提，
of
在这
Bodhi
个树
tree
下就是
also
获得菩提的
it
缘
has
故
a
呢，
name,
就是
gained
讲
a
这个
name
菩提
of
树啊，就是有这样的这
a
个说
tree
法。
that
所以
could
说呢，在印度而言呢，
could
就是实际上是跟这个就是毗
propagate
婆罗
long,
树，就是刚才
could
我们讲的这个毗婆罗树啊，
extend
应
your
该是
your
比较
longevity.
多的，就是同一个种类的。当然
So
是
it
印
is
度
Bodhi
金刚
tree
座
or
那样的
banyan
这个
tree.
菩提树的话，那就
The
是可能
Bodhi
是
tree that
不多
is
的啊，
grown
就是这叫做
at
这个菩提树啊，
the
就是所以
Vajra
呢，
seat.
以这个菩提树来就是
Those
度化
kind of
众生的。
trees
以前
are
我去
rather
过一个
rare.
汉地的那个
I went
有一个
to
人的这个
mainland
居士的这
area
个
once.
院子里面，就是然后那个居士的话呢，就是他
A
就
lay
他就说是
practitioner,
我
I
这个
was
院子
staying
里
at
面
a
种
lay
了一个菩
practitioner's
提树，
place,
就是然后
and lay
我
practitioner
说
told
这么是
me
菩提树
that
呢，就是他说
I
他
have
说是好像是
this
从印度
this
那边
tree
带过
is a
来的，
Bodhi
就是
tree.
然后应该是菩
I
提树
said
的，
then,
反正他自己呢，
how do you
就
know?
是有时候在菩
And
提树下这
he
样
said
打坐，就
that
是他
it's
他
because
说
this
是
tree
我
was
就是
brought
有了
back
菩提树，
from a
现在我
Bodhi
可以
tree.
这个
And
就
sometimes
是
he would
可以
sit
跟释迦牟
underneath
尼
that
佛一样
tree
打
and
坐，就但
think,
他对
and
佛教
he
不是
would
特
say
别
that
特别的
I
心性
am
很不错的，就是这样的一个人。也许他
meditating
听
under
听
this
课的
Bodhi
就
tree,
是
just
然后
as
不懂的话
Shakyamuni
比较
Buddha.
不高兴啊，就是
Maybe
现在也
maybe
许
he
懂
is
了。
listening to this class
很
and
多年
maybe
以
he
前
knows
那个啊，
the
就自己
the
自己
story
在
behind
那
it
个
now.
院子里面做的
So
菩提
don't
树
be
来着，
upset if I say this
就不
about
知道
you.
是不是
But
菩提
years
树啊，
ago,
反
that
是
was
这
a
个有一
while
棵树
ago,
那
he
个
didn't really understand Buddhism, the
自己
doctrines
说
yet.
是菩
Maybe
提
he
树，
does
就是
now.
然后上面用什么英文啊，就是汉文啊，就是就
He
写的这个菩提树，就是他让我这个
he
用藏
thinks
文来
that
解。
it was the
藏
Bodhi
文呢，
tree.
我那个现在暂时不行了，因为到底是不是菩提树我也不好说。
He asked me to write Bodhi tree in Tibetan for him.
但是有菩提树
And
来
I
就是
said,
这个
well,
做
since I'm
佛
not
事
sure if
啊，就
this
是
is
这
a
个
real
是
Bodhi tree or
我们
not,
讲
I'm
到
not
的第
going to
4 个
write
这
it.
个做佛事。
Anyway,
然后
that's
第5个
the
做佛
Bodhi
事
tree.
呢，
The
就是有些
fourth
插图
one.
当中是以这个佛衣
The
啊，
fifth
佛的
one
衣
is
服，
that
还有呢就是莴苣而做这
Buddha's
个佛
clothing
事
and
的。
bedding
那么这个
perform the
藏文
Buddha's
当中呢，
work.
就是没有那
In
个
Tibetan
这个莴
version,
苣啊，
it
就是
doesn't
莴
really
苣，好
say
像那个唐译当中的话呢，
in
这
the
个佛衣和
Town's
莴苣呢就是
translation.
分开，就是
The
这
clothing
个
and
有
bedding
一些那
are
个译
separated
本当
into
中的话呢，
two
就是
rather
不太
than
相
one
同的。
sentence.
意思
So
就是说
different
呢，就是
editions have
佛
a
陀
little
的
bit
这个
different
佛陀
translation
佛
or
陀呢有时候是
it
佛
has
陀的
some
这个
differences.
袈裟啊，就 就是神庙的这种衣服也好，就是它
So
的
the
这个
Buddha's
床榻、卧具
clothing,
啊，
the
就那些
Buddha's
字句呢，就是也
beddings,
是做
the
这个绕一个经的
materials
这样的
that
这个
was used
事
by
情
the
啊，
Buddha
就是
could
那么
also perform
就
the
像这
Buddha's
个佛
work.
陀呢，就是在世的
Just
时
as
候
when
也好，
Buddha
或者
was
是
alive,
佛陀这个涅槃之后啊，就是包
or
括
after the
我们以前
parinirvana
讲
of
到
the
的这个
Buddha,
迦摄尊者呢，他 那个
And the story
他
of
当时那个就是
Mahakashapa,
穿的那个佛陀的这种袈裟，
when
后来这个入定
Mahakashapa
弥
wore
勒佛
the
出世的时候呢，
Buddha's
那么当时
clothing
的那个佛印度还冷这个
and
现象，
entered
当时弥勒佛呢
samadhi,
就是也跟这个
when
宗眷属就介绍，就是他所
Maitreya
这个
Buddha
穿的
would
这个衣服
come
呢，就是当年就是
to
释迦牟尼佛
this
这个
world and
赐给的
teach
这
the
种这个
Dharma,
袈裟，
then
就是也有这样的这个利益
Mahakashapa
众
will
生的
appear
啊，
again
就这样
still
来利益
wearing
众
the
生的。
Buddha's clothing.
还有呢，还有那个，我们就是应该大戒经里面讲的吧，就是说，这个就虚空藏菩萨啊，就因500声闻是以虚空藏菩萨的这个加持你
Also,
用衣服来就是怎么就是绕一众
Akshagarba
生，或者是做佛事的也有这个公案吧？
would
是哪一个？是
the
是在
clothing
虚空藏菩
to
萨的专辑里面，还是在哪里？就是有
to
点忘
perform
了。但
Buddha's
是那个
work.
大
I
集经
think
当
this
中
is
是
in
有
a
这样的。当时有500个这个
collected.
声
This
闻
is
声闻
in
弟子呢，
the
就供养那个
Mahasamgata
就虚空藏菩
Sutra,
萨，就是然后
maybe
500
biography
个
of
这个袈裟，
Akshagarba.
然后
I
500个
can't
这个
quite
袈裟就是
remember,
供养之后
but
的
it
话
was
呢，就
the
虚
story
空藏呢，
that
就是它一下子就很快的时间当中就没有了，
then
就是就不见了。不见了以后呢，那些这个声闻乘的人
disappear
呢，
the
就问那个
500
就我们给你供养的
Buddha's
衣服到哪里
clothings
去了？就是怎么忘了？
that
然
are
后他说已
offered
经
by
藏起来
the
了，就是虚空当中藏起来
by
了。
the
就是
Shravakas.
虚空
The
的话呢，就
Shravakas
是
then
以
asked
虚空
them,
藏
so
菩萨来，就
what
像现在我们的
what
这个所
happened
谓
to
的
the
引导网
clothings?
络一
Why
样，
they
很
all
多变化比较
disappeared?
快的。然后他说我这个
Akshagarba,
藏起来了，
which
就是藏
means
起来了以后，
the
具体这个
treasure
事情
of
呢，你们可以
space.
问那个本
It
师
must
释
be
迦牟
very
尼
easy
佛。
for him to
然后
hide
他们就
everything
开始
into
问那个
space.
佛陀，就是我们对那个虚空藏菩
So
萨供养的
Shravakas
这个衣服，他一
Then
下子就看不
Shravakas
到
then
了，怎么办呢？
went
就是
to
到底
ask
是
the
在怎
Buddha,
么
saying
回事？
that we
然后
offered
佛
the
陀呢，就
clothing
就
to
告诉我，就是说
Akshagarba,
是
then
从这个地
everything
方就是往
disappeared.
东
What do we
方
do
就是
then?
多少多少，
The
就是
Buddha
很
then
远
said
的这个
that if
是多
you
少个世界
go
以外的
to
地方呢，
the
就是有一
east
个叫做是
after
这个山王如来，
immeasurable
在这
number
个
of
山王
worlds,
如来的
and
这个
there's
刹
a
度当
Buddha
中的话
named
呢，就是
the
那么就是
king of
这些衣服
king
呢，就是
of
就是依靠应该
mountains,
是虚空藏菩萨的一个
Tadaka-
三摩地嘛，就是一个
Tadaka-
灯次里的话呢，他在那个
And
世界
over
当中呢，
there-
就是依靠这种妙意来，就发出这个声音，让这里的这个众生
Akshagarba
呢，就是得到这个利益。现在想起来，可能有些是确实也是
make
不可
the
思议的
sounds
但是
over
呢，
there
也
to
确实
benefit
有
ascension
这样的
beings
这种
over
现象
there.
啊，就是神文称的这
It's
种
quite
这个
inconceivable.
弟子们的衣服呢，就是依靠虚空藏菩萨的以虚空藏等次的这个
The
就是
Shravakas
加持和
clothings
因此以后呢，就是在其他的世界当中呢，就是会有这个绕
disappeared from this
啊，就是
world
绕一众
and
生
then
所以
were
绕一
transformed
众生呢，
into
还是
the other
非常多的，就是我
Buddha
们
land to
也
benefit
是就是
ascension
比如
beings
说以
in
前
the
的什
other
么这个
world.
莲花生大
This
师
is
啊，
quite
宗喀巴大师啊
inconceivable.
就是他们那个留下来的一些
Pamasambhava,
这个法义啊，
Tsongkhapa,
然
the
后
clothings they
这些
left
法义的话
behind
呢，就是后代就是多少年以后的这个人呢，
could
就是他依
benefit
靠这种这个
generations
法义来
after
也是
the
绕于众生。
after
我们这个
the
前几年的话呢，好像上师如意
passed
宝
into
就给了有
parinirvana
一些
or
这个他的这个
are
衣
not
服啊
manifesting
就是切
themselves.
片儿，然后这个切片儿的
Last
话呢，
year,
就包括
Pansuk
就是我们
Rinpoche's
这个放在
clothing
什么这个
were then cut into small pieces and
这里面
then
也有很多衣服，对吧？
sent to give it to everyone. Those small pieces of clothing. I have
然后
one
你
too.
们的这个你那个跟我的有点不同，我的这个比较好看一点。
Mine is prettier than
你
yours.
看这边是法王如意宝的像，
See, my
这
locket
边
has
是
Pansuk
这个
Rinpoche's
手的幸福
picture
中间，还有
and
这个舍利啊，
it has relics and the clothing of Pansuk Rinpoche.
所以
So
所以真的，以前我们那个小的时候呢，有时候就病得比
When I
较
was-
严重啊，就突然
when I
就
was
急诊
young,
的
there
话
was
呢
a saying
有一
that
些那个
if you
就
get
是什么
sick
这个上司啊，就是有一些衣服的
get
话呢，
really
就是马
sick,
上那个
and
就是
if you could
火烧
burn
就是它那个
the
烟然后
clothing
就去一
of
下，
a great
或者说是
master's
这个会
piece
呢
of
就是
a
自
piece
己
of great
吃一
master's
下就马
clothing
上会
and
好的
use
也许是可
such
能心性
smoke
导致的
to
也许是真的是有一种
to
这种
purify
力量
yourself
吧
or
就是
eat
这
the
种
ashes
这种
of
力量
that
我
piece
们
of
有些可能
clothing,
没有
then
信仰
you'll
的人
get
觉得说啊
well
某个人的
right
衣服
away.
切片挂
This
在
is
那个
probably
脖子上
because of
太
the
没
faith
事了，就是
and
那有
some
什么意思？
and
就跟我
other
的衣服和
blessings
他的
that
衣服
comes
一模
from
一样
it.
的，也许可
People
能
may
是
feel that
但
this
也许
is
呢，就
really
像金刚
stupid.
圣人
How
经里
could
面
you
讲
feel
的一
that a
样的，
burning of the
出家人
clothing
的
could
这
heal
种
you?
生意的这个
But
切片的话呢，就是有无数的这废人的话呢，也是订单，
It it is said that if the monks' robes are cut into pieces, wherever the pieces of clothing are, the celestial beings as well as the beings from different realms, and they all then reverent to that piece of clothing. From great masters, even the piece of clothing or strand of hair, or even just one little fragment of those are still the object of reverence for all the celestial beings and the non-humans. From the lineage masters as well as the great masters that's still alive, I think a lot of those blessed objects should then attached with great importance, just as the Pantsukul Rinpoche's Dharma throne. When he visited Lokama, Upper Lokama, back in 1986, I came to Larongar back in 1985, and then I supplicated to Pantsukul Rinpoche and kept on saying that Pantsukul Rinpoche kept on requesting Pantsukul Rinpoche to visit my hometown, that is the Upper Lokama. So he then went there and taught over there. He was teaching on this high Dharma throne, which we kept afterwards. And last year we moved that Dharma throne to the exhibition hall of our monastery, because Pantsukul Rinpoche is such a great master. The Dharma throne that he sat on has a great value and great blessings that is worth for everyone to pay reverence, to prostrate to. Westerners nowadays, they feel that crystals are really important, are really precious, because they feel the crystals have the power to dispel different obstacles and dispel illness and so on. And then they also cherish different kinds of singing bowls that makes the sounds. They would spend lots of money to buy those singing bowls, especially places as Italy and England. Not that they have the belief into those objects, but they have great interest in the history behind all the different objects and artifacts. Jewels, pearls, they would keep it for many years. Beds, bookshelves, and shelves. They would keep it for a long period of time, and those antiques, they really cherish those antiques. They even purposely then paint the modern furniture as antique furniture. In fact, everything else, everything inside is new, and they would earn money in such a way. So what I'm trying to say is that do not pursue the new things blindly. Rather, there are things that has great strength and has great blessings, has great stories behind, including the old artifacts that's left behind by our parents or grandparents. Those are things that's worth for us to keep with us. Anyhow, here it talks about how the Buddha's clothing and bedding perform the Buddha's work. The sixth one talks about the food perform the Buddha's work. Just as the previous chapter we talked about the accumulation of fragrance, Pure Land, they would use food and fragrance as a way to perform Buddha's work. And Ajata Shachu also offered to all the Sanghas and the Bodhisattvas with the blessing of Manjushri. During
这样的，这个我们就这个前面也讲了，就是不说，然后这是第6个。
We've already talked about that. That was the 6th one.
就是凡是
with food.
做佛事的就是供债，做佛事就是
Making offering to the Sangha, making food offering to the Sangha, and to perform that as a Buddhist work. And then the next one talks about the grove and pavilions perform the Buddhist work. In Tibetan version, it also says gazebos and river, water, with all of the above, the clean water, gardens, and mansions, gazebos, and pavilions.
还有一些泰观吧，就是这个观景台啊，就是现在我们
some gazebos where you can see beautiful scenes, just as the east and the west we built nice lookout. Maybe people who step onto those lookouts, they can then look at the whole scene of Vimalakirti where they can gain great blessings. Because sometimes it is not that only the statues or the monasteries, rather it was the gardens and the beautiful sceneries are also the manifestation of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. According to the Sutra of Infinite Life, it says that in this Buddha land, flowers, fruits, and trees perform the Buddhist work for the benefit of sentient beings. In the Pure Land of Infinite Life, the form, the sound, the fragrance, the taste, and the feeling, all of those could then bring people to give rise to bodhicitta. The trees and all the different fragrance all teach the Dharma. Even if you just visualize whomsoever make any connection to that world, to anything in that Pure Land, they will then give fruition of Bodhi. They will then gain the fruition of Bodhi. So through such a way, the groves and pavilions perform the Buddha's work. That's the 7th. And then the 8th one talks about the 32 characteristics and 80 subsidiary marks perform the Buddha's work.
而做这个佛事啊，就是由这个来做佛事。那么，那么这个是这个佛陀在世的时候呢，就是佛陀有这个32相。还有这个80岁号。
When Buddha is alive, he then benefits sentient beings with 32 characteristics and 80 subsidiary marks to perform the Buddha's work, because the Buddha looks really pleasant. He has such a beautiful presence. And whenever people see him, they will give rise to great faith. Just as I think we talked about how Prasanadi's, the king Prasanadi's daughter is very ugly, and he had to marry his daughter to a lower caste and requested the husband should not look at her. The baby is a little too loud. It's okay. Never mind. You don't have to go out, just a little bit farther away from the microphone.
好，可以了，差不多了。
Okay, I think that's good.
然后当时那个，就是这个女士当时特别的伤心。
So the daughter of Pasanati was really upset. Well, I can still hear the baby's sound. It's
那么
very,
远的地方还
very
发出那么
clear
清晰的声音。
and loud sound
然后
from
那
so
个，她
far.
当时那个女的就是特别伤心。
Anyhow,
她想，如果这个世界上有一个祸的话呢，
daughter
那
of
么
Pasanati
让
was
我
really
就变成那个就
was
是尿
very
色，就是她
heartbroken,
一心祈祷
and
一
she
个
was
佛
thinking
陀
that
就真
if
是就是
I
从地里面就是
can
再现，就是最后她的这个
pray
身体呢
to
就是
the Buddha
完全都
and
就变成了就是特
gain
别好看的。然后
gain
就
a
是这
better
个是
gain
当
a
然这个
better
是当时是一个
appearance.
后
I
的
would
这个
love
价
to
值
do that,
我
and
现
then
在这个时
with
代
the
当中可能
blessings
颜值比较高的
of
很多人呢就是
with
想
the
变成比较好
blessings
看
of
的
the
话呢
Buddha,
也是付出
the
一定
daughter
代
of
价的话
Pasanati
呢
then
基本上
transformed
也
into
是
this very
有
beautiful
这个
woman.
加持力，就是
I think nowadays
这也是可能需要的，
people
就是有一
in
些
this
时候呢
world
就是
they
他们
also
现在做
receive
这
some
个
kind of
现在
blessings
这个时
to
代呢，
have
就是什么
this
都就是不重视，
have
就
their
是要
appearance.
就
Also,
陷到这
it
个
is
相貌
said
里
in
比
this
较重视，
world
正因为
that
这样的话，
appearance is
很
the
多
most
人呢也
important.
是可能做的各种各样的一些不健
So
康的事情，
people
但
would
不管怎么
use
样呢，
different
就是佛陀
unhealthy
的这种
things
庄严
to
圣像，就是见到这
transform
个
their
确实
appearance
是
to
让
be
这个
more
很
beautiful.
很多的这
Anyhow, the
个人呢
Buddha,
就是
in
自然
fact,
而然这
he
个起心性，就是以前那个佛
used
家
these
王
numinous
是吧？就是当时
powers,
跟
or
那个
his
频婆娑罗王的
appearance
一个朋
brings
友啊，
great
他们两个后来
faith
到互
from
相谢
different
信，
people.
然后那个频婆那个佛教娑王呢，就我们国家有如何，我们的国家的特产
and
就是就给他
his
起信。
friend
然后那个这个频婆娑罗王呢，就是说是我们这里呢有一个叫做这个佛陀，就是佛陀的这个
he
圣像，
was
给
then
他推荐的时候那个说教
writing letters
就是那个
with
佛教娑王就是
to
那个
his
国王呢
friend,
就是他就
the
从
friend
通过书信当中的话呢，就是对佛陀
Pushamitra.
产生极大的信心啊，就是
So
没有这个故事。所以说
During their
这个佛陀
letter,
的这种
during
庄
their
严圣像呢
letter,
这个
during
不
their
管
conversation
也
through
有
their
这样的
letters,
然后
each of them
以旧的是
kept
吧
on
以
saying
旧的
how
话呢
they
就是也有
would
这个
share
佛的这
different
个身像啊，就
great
是
things
唐译里
from
面
the
就是
two
这两个故
countries.
事是
One says that they have gold leaves and so on. The other one, Bimbisara says that gold leaves and gems are
也有
nothing
这个
compared
过程
to
呢，这
the
个做
Buddha that we
做
have
佛
in
事
our
当然
country.
这个是可能佛圆寂以后也好，我们现在的这个什么通像也好，
Also, it says that the ninth one, it says that the Buddha's body performs the Buddha's work. The Tanka statue and the different kinds of form of Buddha's body performs the Buddha's work. So whenever you carry a Buddha's statue with you, whenever people sees it through any kind of mentality that they may have at the moment, just by seeing, by looking at the Buddha statue, people will then get a seed sold in their mind. People nowadays, even if they have a glimpse of the beautiful Buddha's depiction, they will have faith, a reason within. When I was young, I was living in a very special time that Buddha statue and pictures of Buddha, depictions of Buddha were not allowed. So there was not much of, there was a restriction in terms of that. I was living close to a Lama, an old Lama, who has this tanka of Buddha, and he would then ask me to herd his yaks at that time and then show me the picture of the Buddha if I don't lose any yaks. So every time he would show me a little bit only. So next time, after you herd the yaks for me, and then I will show you the whole picture. At that time, it was really funny.
就我们那个隔壁有一个叫日嘎喇嘛，就是去年有一个西方人，就是
日嘎喇嘛
那个小的时候，就是我就
was my neighbor, and last year a Westerner kept on asking me questions about my kept on asking me questions about him, and now he feels that he is very familiar with the because I kept on telling him all the details about him. Anyway, the 10th one talks about the space perform Buddhist work. I think for practitioners is the most important because we would practice by looking into space. So when space performs Buddhist work, that's wonderful, isn't it? Did I tell? I think I told the story of Ajata statue who killed his own father. Anyhow, I didn't finish the whole story. He wanted to repent in front of Manjushri. He offered this really extremely expensive clothes to Manjushri. And Manjushri then said, after holding the clothing, all of a sudden he then threw the clothing into space, and Manjushri disappeared into the space as well as the clothing. And the Manjushri said that you should offer clothing to someone who has a form. So Ajata statue then offered it to bodhisattvas as well as Shravakas, and all of them disappear as well. Then Ajata statue offered it to his concubines and queens. All of them all disappeared once they put on those clothing as well. So he then put on that piece of clothes onto his own body. His own body also disappeared. He then thought to himself, there's no place for me to make this offering. What do I do then? And Manjushri in space started saying, Manjushri, then his voice started to appear in the space, saying that just as there's no place for the clothes to abide, there's no place for your past misdeeds to abide either. And at that time, Ajata statue developed a firm view in emptiness. So through space, Ajata statue then also then understood that, just as nowadays, I think there's this rope of invisible rope from Harry Potter, and I'll show you a short clip.
What is it? Some kind of cloak. Well, let's see then. Put it on. Whoa! My body's gone. I know what that is. That's an invisibility cloak. I'm invisible. It's really rare. I wonder who gave it to you. There was no name. It just said, use it well. Famous fire eaters.
他去那个看那些禁止。
So Harry Potter went to the restricted
到了那里以后，
section of library, and when he opened the book that is restricted, and then the book started screaming.
这些啊，
Anyhow,
就出家人也好，
the monastics
修行人的话呢，
and lay
不要那个
practitioners,
经常呢就是看，就是
I really hope
经
that
常
you
看的话呢
don't watch
因为你
all
们都
these
是
kind
对
of
可能习
TV
气啊
series.
就
Maybe
可能
because of your
佛
habitual
方面的
pattern,
这个习气比较少一点，
you don't have
时间
too
的
much
习气多
of
一点。
the
但是也不能完
worldly,
全
you don't have
禁止，
too
完
much
全
of
禁止
the
的话呢，
Buddhism
反过来
habitual patterns,
怎么说，
but
就是
you
这个
have
逆反的
too
习
much
性，
of
完
the
全这样的话，
worldly
我非要
habitual
看一
patterns.
下，就是这样的。
Of course, I
然
can't
后
stop you from all of
所以
these
自己呢，就
because
应该有
you
智
are
慧的
quite
人，自己
rebelliant.
我好像是现在
For
看
people
这些
who are
的话呢，
quite
应该
wise,
不被他们这个诱惑，就是应该自己好像反而就是刚才我们就是在这
as
个
I
书
said,
当这
I
个
think
这个
nowadays
片
when
段
I
里
watch
面都
this
是
kind of things,
看起来有一
I'm
种
not
就是这种
really,
应声，就这种应声呢，历史上也是有的。
I'm
那
not
这是
really
刚才
too
我
drawn
们
to
讲的
it,
阿斯斯
but
旺的
I'm
故事
not
当
quite
中
sure
也
about
是
you.
有的。
Anyhow,
我
it
想
talks
起了
about the
那个
invisibility cloak. It
鸠摩罗
really
什翻
reminds
译
me
的那
of
个龙母菩萨的传记啊，就是里面当时。
Nagarjuna's biography that's translated by Kumarajiva. It is stated that Nagarjuna was smart, but wasn't really full of. Was very smart, and him and his friends were then looking for entertainment after they felt that they already learned all different kinds of wisdom in this world. And then they felt that if we really want to enjoy life, we should go to the palace because.
这个阴身大师呢，就是他不像全部的教，就只是给一点点的教。结果呢，因为他们特别的聪明，就是在这个阴身的那个弯子，就是稍微就是给他给一点，他们一问就马上知道这里面的所有的愿望，然后就全部进攻了。全部进攻以后呢，就是到那个他们3个伙伴，然后到那个就皇宫里面就是出入自在，就是经常这样。
And upon smelling, sniffing the pill, all of them right away know what the ingredients of the invisibility pill. So they went invisibly into the palace, and after the 4 of them getting to the palace, they really indeed created quite a bit of chaos. They impregnated lots of the concubine of the king. The king was really mad after knowing that and without knowing who did it. So the king's hands then advised him, saying that the invisible person or invisible ghost, whomsoever does it, of course for the ghost we cannot do much about it, but if it's people who did it, then we can definitely find out. So this hand of the king then spreaded very fine powder onto the ground, and then because although they're invisible, all of them still have a form of the body, they then left footprint onto these fine powders. So the king then summoned 100 warriors holding swords, then started waving their swords in the air, and all 3 of the friends of Nagarjuna died from the random swinging of the swords. But Nagarjuna was really smart because Nagarjuna went right behind the king, and nobody was swinging sword behind the king, so he survived. But after witnessing this, Nagarjuna at that moment right away realized that all desires are the source of suffering. So Nagarjuna then was ordained. I think as monastics, this is quite important. Although this part is not from Nagarjuna's biography, but I think this part is then recorded in the Forest of Gems in the Garden of the Dharma. After Nagarjuna got ordained, Nagarjuna started to read all different kinds of texts of Buddha Dharma. He studied all the Dharma texts within 90 days. And after finished reading all the Dharma texts, he then went into the Naga's palace with the great Naga Bodhisattva's blessings. And within 90 days, he then finished reading all the sutras and shastras that are hidden in the Naga's palace. And then this Bodhisattva asked Nagarjuna, saying that, how was the reading? And he said then, I think the text that is in the Naga's palace is so much more than the ones that's kept in the human world. And then Bodhisattva said, in fact, what we have is not much compared to what is then reserved in the heavenly palace. Therefore, Nagarjuna, who have read so many Dharma texts in a human realm and in the Naga's palace are so not comparable to the ones that's hidden in the heavenly realm. So, after so many disasters of destroying Buddhism in this human world, we have still so many texts left, but compared to the Naga palace and heavenly realm, it is still not as much. We have a treasure trove of all the Dharma texts. And the next one says that there are other Buddha lands, the dreams, and illusion and shadows, echoes, image, mirror, the moon reflected in water, mirage during times of heat, and other metaphors perform the Buddha's work. In the Tang's translation, it also have the metaphor of Gandhara, city of Gandhara, and the Indra's net. So there were 8 metaphors. Over here it has 8 metaphors, and the Tang's version has 10. In the Tibetan version, it has 6 metaphors. So sometimes it is using the 8 metaphors of illusion to benefit sentient beings. I read the first Dudrung Rinpoche's a collection of teachings. There's this one specialty that he has. The first one is that he first then pay respect, and the second one he would teach his disciples of dream-like quality and illusion-like quality. I really hope that everyone here would have a better understanding of illusory-like quality. This year, I think, at the end of the year, we're going to then learn one of the 3 trilogies of Longchenpa on illusory. I think that's the one. Because you should really know that whatever appears is really no other than a dream. The world also talks about how everything's like a dream. In fact, it is the same. Some bodhisattvas, they would use dreams to liberate sentient beings, just as Gadayana. He has a disciple who's a king. The king got ordained, became monastic, and then he studied with Gadayana for a while. And then the king's concubine went to the close to the Gadayana's disciple, who's now the king. Therefore, the king went to the disciple and then started to taking revenge. And he said to Gadayana that I have to go there and take revenge. And then Gadayana said that, well, just let it go because it is meaningless. But this previous king wouldn't let it go. So Gadayana then told him that, well, at least you stay for this one night, and tomorrow you can go and then take your revenge as you wish. But while he's staying over here for a night, this previous king then had a dream. And he dreamt that he indeed went there to take the revenge and fight over the new king. But he lost the war, and he lost the fight, and he was sentenced to die. He was sentenced to death. And after great difficulties, he saw Gadayana in front of him, and he was asking for Gadayana to help and crying out for help. He then woke up from such great cry that he shouted out. So he woke up and realized it was just a dream. And then he thought to himself, well, maybe this is really not a good idea to get derobed. For me, sometimes I have good dreams, sometimes not so good dreams. But I would think that they're all like the image in the mirror, they're like the moon reflected in the water, they're like the shadow. In fact, they do appear, but everything is just like they're just dreamlike. As stated in the sutra that is requested by Brahma Viseshasintin, it says that examining all phenomena, bodhisattvas know that they are like illusions and nothing intrinsic can be obtained, thus viewing everything as empty space. So we've talked about the 12th already, and now we're on the 12th. We're now going to talk about the 12th metaphor. It says that where sounds, words, and letters perform Buddha's work, as how Buddha teaches through words and sounds and letters, so that the sentient beings can be liberated. Also, the Buddha said that at the end of the 500 year of my teaching, I will appear as words and letters. Some of the Buddha's work would manifest as the sounds. People who hear the sounds and feel touched, feel quite moved.
就害怕没有智还是没有逼，就没有默，不知道，就中间舍不得，或有清净刹土呢，寂寞无言无所无事无事无作无为而作佛事。
They don't want to write down words, where the wordless, explanationless, and manifestationless, and consciousnessless, and unconstructed and unconditioned perform the Buddha's work. In fact, over here, the Buddha is already in this complete extinction. There is no word, no explanation, no dualistic thoughts.
这样的一种坐禅禅修远离四边八系的，那种境界度众生。
They're at a state where they're then devoid of extremes of all different kind of fabrications. They abide in such state and then benefit all sentient beings. So thus, Ananda, given the Buddha's deployments of deportments and their various actions, there is nothing that is not the Buddha's work. In fact, all the Buddha's activities are to benefit the sentient beings, just as the 400 stanzas of the Middle Way says that not a single movement of Buddhists is without reason. Even their breathing is exclusively for the benefit of sentient beings. So any kind of activity, movement, all have the reason to benefit sentient beings. Last year, we published this commemoration booklet of Pontsuk Rinpoche, where Pontsuk Rinpoche said that during my time of relying upon my guru, whatever he does, his action, his jokes, are all the teachings. And I attach great importance to whatever my teacher does. So even if it's a joke that's told by my teacher, I would then contemplate upon it because I would see it as a teaching. So a teacher or a Buddha, whatever whatever activities they do, they are the activities of benefiting and teaching the sentient beings. Any kind of activities, they would view it as a way to benefit sentient beings and see it as a condition which then will benefit oneself. So that's the Buddha's work. We'll stop here today.